and start sending you that timed content. So what happens is once that connection is established, the receiver sends to the phone what show you're watching and the moment that you're watching the show. So if you're 12 minutes and 5 seconds into the show, the phone knows that and it'll track the progress along. In addition to this, we also are working, we will be rolling out an ACR solution, which is automatic content recognition. You guys are probably familiar with Shazam, works just the same way. So basically, no matter how you watch it, as a viewer, you'll be able to synchronize your phone with that piece of content. And we just think this is hugely important to how people are watching TV today. I'm sure most of you have watched something on a DVR or on Hulu. You know, people are going to watch TV when they want and how they want. And so we want to be the platform and the second screen experience that's there no matter how you're doing that.
Thank you, Amy, Smiley. And we're going to move into more engaging with the panel and engaging with you. This is an open panel. I'm going to start with some questions, but if somebody wants to put their 2 cents in, we're very happy to hear from them. So I mean, we saw really some great examples for what is out there. And each one is really very, very specific to what they do and gives the artist, the creator, a huge amount of freedom to create and to reach the audience. So let's start with a very big question of the future of convergence panels. Like, where are we going with all of this? I mean, I completely see that there's so many, where I see it, and I'm going to give my 2 cents, is that the convergence is actually divergent. Like, we're going the opposite, even though there's so many platforms. The problem is that there are so many. And where are we going with all of this? Are we going to see more convergence or more divergence? Yeah.
You know, I think any kind of predictions are bound to be wrong. I mean, looking back in multimedia, which was what we used to call transmedia, in the 90s, there was a lot of the things that we've seen were kind of predicted and were attempted in small little niche groups, and then they've really kind of blossomed as first internet became mainstream, and then these devices went mainstream, and it made it accessible. But a lot of these things existed before. They may have existed with, you know, LARPers or you know, a bunch of geeks in a basement or something like that. And now it's becoming much more broad. I think that the next thing of revolution is going to be something we haven't thought of, that hasn't been done. And I think we have to exercise a few of the things that it's like, theoretically, you could have a game that was persistent over 3 or 4 days with thousands of people, okay? Now we're playing with that. And now, once we've kind of pushed that a little bit further, someone's going to come up with something that no one's ever discussed before, and we're all going to go, whoa. And then, so I think it's going to start, pieces are going to glom together in terms of like, there'll be standard ways of producing stuff, but then there's going to be these offshoots that are just going to be a lot of garbage, and then every once in a while it goes right.
Yeah, predictions are easy. Flying cars. We're going to get there, people. We're going to get the fun. No, I'm just kidding. So the way I see it, I mean, I agree with your point about convergence and divergence. I think we are diverging, and I think that's okay. I think that one more sort of bigger trend that I see, though, is we've been in kind of a world recently where the conversation and the activity around entertainment has been what I call third person. In other words, we're talking about the entertainment, which is great. I can talk to my friends about the show I'm watching on TV, and I can tweet about it, and that's fantastic. But I really think we're headed towards second person and first person. In other words, second person, where I get to participate in the story. So it's not just me sitting back and watching the story, but through technologies like ours, you can participate in the story. And then first person, I want to create part of the story. I want to be the one that helps to not necessarily define the story world, but actually help to tell part of the story world, or my perspective on the story world. So for me, the sort of bigger thing of where are we headed more involves kind of how do fans engage with these story worlds, how do they engage with the different kinds of transmedia that are coming out, and then I think Dan's absolutely right, where, you know, it's impossible to guess sort of where things are going to go specifically, but I'm looking forward to getting more sort of involved, both as a storyteller and a fan.
Yeah, what they said.
Flying cars.
Yeah, flying cars. No, I mean, looking at it just from kind of what I know, which is the TV space in the living room, you know, I do agree. I think both convergence and divergence are going to continue to happen, but I think if you look at the semantics of how people talk about TV today, it doesn't matter how you watch. You're watching on an iPad, you're watching on your phone on the subway. You still kind of say like, oh, I'm watching TV. So I think in that sense that there's going to be all these screens in our lives, but we're not going to talk about them as separate types of screens. You're always going to have a first screen. Sometimes it might be the iPad, sometimes it might be the television, it might be your computer, but I think you're also always going to have a second screen because people love to stay connected. So it just is a matter of what, sometimes your iPad's going to be your second screen, sometimes it's going to be your first screen. But at the end of the day, we're going to watch TV in a variety of ways, and I think, in 5 or 10 years, there's just going to be screens, and they're all going to be connected to the internet.
Yeah, I tend to completely agree. And I like what you said about TV because what used to be the water cooler conversation is still the same conversation. It's just being done in a different way. I think virtual is creating that conversation to us in the new generation, in the multi-platform, multi-screen generation. So how do you empower, actually, Katie, empower your fans to really create? How do you really get the tool? But not only that, because people are going to show up and do it, and we know about the upside down pyramid of engagement and lesser engagement of the viewers. How do you actually really encourage engagement and creation, actually becoming the first person in your fans or in your people that use your tool?
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple things. First of all, ever since we've started MISO, we've found that the fans in the TV community are extremely passionate. People are so connected emotionally to the shows that they watch, and they love to express that feeling and that sentiment. So I think there's, in our tools that we look at, there's two kind of paths that we see. One is creation, but another is curation. So there's already great stories that exist out there today. They're hidden though. That if you've ever gone and looked up a hashtag for a TV show, I think someone mentioned it, it's a fire hose of data, and how do you know what's a good tweet? But there are out there. There's funny tweets and insightful commentary and things about the plot that you would never think of. So how can we surface those in our tool to let users handpick the best ones? So their audience and ultimately the majority of people who are the consumers of the second screen content, they don't have to do the work. Similarly, if you look at TV fan forums out there, or even on IMDb or Wikipedia, if you read through these articles about the shows, there's really great content in there. It's just hidden. So what we want to do is really be able to surface those in our tool in an easy way for the producers to find that information and put it in to a sideshow and tag it again like at the relevant moment that you're most interested in that trivia or that insightful commentary. And so in addition to that, how do we make it easy? One thing that we're really focused on doing, and we've always been focused on, is experimentation. And so we're doing a ton of research efforts around content, and we publish this on our blog. If anyone's interested, it's just blog.gomiso.com. We look at every variable out there, from the pacing of content to what type of content resonates best with what genres and what shows, and what are the preferences of users based on the psychographics and demographics. So we say this all the time, but there's a lot of people trying to explore this space and figure out what the answer is. We don't know what the answer is yet. We don't think anyone does, but we're excited to learn and research, and we're excited to publish and share those learnings. So please check out our blog, and hopefully you'll find something interesting.
Question to Aaron. One question, is that for Katie? Yeah.
I'll suggest to everyone.
Yeah.
Let's see. Most of your presentations show people sitting in a living room, and it's just like campus room. But with mobile devices, people tend to be outside the room all the time. They're moving around. And you mentioned Foursquare. So how does this change the whole metaphor? Because you're not just sitting in the room passively watching, but you're actively engaging with people outside.
Did everybody hear the question? Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Don't go for that.
I think it's a great point. And certainly from my perspective, when we originally thought about how do you connect with these characters, I want you to connect with them while you're waiting in line at the bank. Like, it's not just about connecting with them on their terms, it's about connecting with them on your terms, just like you connect to your friends and family. You shouldn't do it while you're driving, but just about any other time, you should be able to pull out your phone and see what's going on with the characters and with your fans, or with your friends. And I think that's really sort of the next, where we're headed with this kind of storytelling. It becomes much more immersive. Part of it is, how do you connect to their story world, and vice versa, how do they connect to your real world? So, you talked about Foursquare, for instance. Imagine, being able to have the check-ins that you do in your real world affect what happens in the story world with the characters, right? And vice versa. And I think those connections are really important, and that's the direction we're headed. It's all about sort of doing it on your time, not necessarily the character's time.
And just a question for me, and this is more for the three of you to think, or for all of us to think, are we going into a world where reality and fiction are going to be one and the same? Dan, what do you think?
I think we're already there. I think that the consumer, the media consumer that is growing up today has an extremely different viewpoint on the media of I think most of our generation. There's a few different. But for media for me was you go home after school. You're talking about teenage prime audience, going home after school at a particular time and watching your particular show because it was at that particular time, and then talking about it the next day because everybody who is cool is watching the proper show, and then whatever. And now media is just at whenever you want. It's on the bus. It's on your iPad. It's at home. It's on the computer. It's all the different places. It's all different times. It's completely uncontrolled. It's just media fire hose at you from all sorts of different directions. And I think that different relationship with media isn't yet worked out. I think it's not quite mature yet, and I don't know if we're going to. I think it's really hard to see where that's going to go. But I think that the idea that people are going to be in one room looking at something and sharing that experience on a communal way is lost. It's gone.
Well, we're seeing it. We got conference guys, tablet guys. Everybody's there's a push and pull between you see the actual sentiment coming up from user crowdsourcing, crowdwriting, something more like part that came out of the fact that people engage users creation work. Actually, that's the most fun in the world. So how do you tie in quality? I don't like the word creation. It's an old paradigm, but quality metaphors, and elements, and art combined with interactive, interesting, compelling, user experiences like World of Warcraft, which is that's the question we're looking at. How do you start to center that through hashtags? Center back. Yeah, or also voting, or also user project. I love to see user crowdsourced and also individualized to joint ventures. Say our real world, our digital. That's what some stuff we're seeing. Lots of stuff we need that really takes storytelling into, like you said,
How many here have watched or are fans of My Drunk Kitchen? Yeah. Okay. So My Drunk Kitchen is a great, transposing between media. It's a show. It's a television show, but it was made by this one woman and a camera. I think she started out without having anybody helping her, and she'd get drunk in front of the television, in front of the camera, and make food. And it's awesome. And it's about 5 minutes long. She has a huge following. She engages with her fan base in multiple mediums. She engages with her fan bases by going to their homes and cooking in their kitchens. I mean, how much more real is that? I mean, she's actually doing media in people's houses and then putting it out there to the world and really become quite a sensation. And there's a lot of those different places. There's a lot of that kind of media. And that's why I think that the relationship between the way people treat media now is completely different. Not only is it disjointed, but it is user-generated. And that's technically what she is. She says, I'm going to use YouTube and I'm making my user-generated content, which is a television show, which is now actually making money. Ads. I don't know if she's really she still has a day job.